Alright, let's get started on our PVE itemization. So there were some interesting challenges for PVE. The HP thresholds are much harder in PVE. You need to hit 28k plus. You can see here that I did hit it. And your transmutation set just doesn't really do anything. Now again here, you can choose an offensive set like Juliana. I've shown you how you're getting your mitt from elsewhere, but I decided to do something a little bit more fun, and as you can see by the swirling balls around my head, you might be able to guess which way I went with it. I've gone with 5 Ebon, 5 Worm, 2 Engine Guardian for my PvE tank build. Now, these group sets have recently been updated to V16, and before they were only available in V14. So they're now a lot more viable. The only problem is if any other role besides a tank runs them, they're going to suffer for their role, whereas a tank can actually benefit from most of the stats in these sets. The cost reduction, the healing taken, the max magic and spell damage is more offensive power than a tank is used to having. The HP is huge from this set. This is the most HP that a set can give to you. It's massive. And the group buffs are really handy as well. So this Ebon set actually helps us counter our HP threshold problem. It all just sort of works, and in the meantime we're really helping our team. Now someone doesn't have to cut the performance of their role to run this group buff. You're giving all the casters this 5% cost reduction. It's really helping your team performance. Here, all those people that want to run glass cannon builds and just really ride the line and end up with like 16,700 health, now suddenly they're really close to 18k, if not over 18k, which is a healthy amount of HP to have. And those people who are already at 18k and change, they're over 20k. They're solid. And those people that were already at 20k and solid are now like looking at tank HP and loving it. So this is a really good group buff to have. Now people who see me tanking this, sometimes they think that I'm wearing the 5 Ebon heavy and the Worm Cult jewelry and sword and board. But you know, if you've watched the intro, you know that this patch, we're a light armor tank. So I currently have Tri-Stat Infused Engine Guardian Mask, medium, a heavy Engine Guardian Shoulders Infused, Tri-Statted, a Divine's Jerkin of the Worm, Tri-Statted, a Divine's Breeches of the Worm, Tri-Statted, all Magic Enchanted Tri-Statted Worm, 3 Ebon rings, jewelry, just Ebon jewelry, all max health because that's what it comes as, and 1 magic recovery, 2 block cost. I need 2 defending shields, but I only have 1, so one of them is Divine's. They're both magic enchanted. I have an off-bar Ebon axe with Restore Magicka, defending, and I like the defending trait. You could also go with sharpened. And really just, it doesn't matter what kind of one-handed weapon, just go for the style you like. I like the sickle and the morning star, so that's what I went with. Then I went with a defending Ebon mace as well. I did poison damage for more DPS, but you could also do the stamina restore version on this mace as well. Now this is not the perfect build right here. I just sort of threw it together because, you know, I had the theory and I wanted to get testing really quickly. I will be adjusting this over time. So let me walk through my adjustments on what I think will be the most ideal. Let me preface that by saying this is working. This is actually working very well for me in PvE. I have tanked all content successfully, except for the new trial Vet Maul, which, you know, my group is trying to figure out right now, and I'm using this tank to do it, and it is performing very well in Vet Maul. Our team hasn't gotten a full complete yet. We're on the second boss, but it's not because of this tank. This tank's doing solid performance in Vet Maul, and it's champ in normal Maul. So if you're worried like there's no way a light armor tank would be able to tank the Manticora, you're wrong. The axes, it's actually the easiest axe tank I've ever done for hard mode AA. It's doing extremely well. So you don't have to stray from this, but I feel that your ideal slot would be this exact helmet, infused, medium, tri-stat enchant, Engine Guardian mask. When we get to here, however, I would have done a Magicka enchanted Divine's Light Engine Guardian shoulders. And then here, this should be a reinforced Ebon Curious tri-stat enchanted. This should be infused tri-stat enchanted. These should all remain the same. One of these rings should be a Wormcolt ring, or one of the weapons, or really any of these sets here should be Wormcolt. And the same, if you go with a weapon, it would have to be, like, say if you did the shield, it'd have to be both shields. But any one of these pieces, both weapons, both shields, or one of the accessories, should be Wormcolt. And both shields should be defending. You don't need a tri-stat enchant on your shield, really. You're going to lose those values when you weapon swap anyway. So that is, to me, what would have been the ideal setup. And the reason for it is to get a little bit more armor off having that heavy piece in your chest and having it be reinforced. So that's the one sort of change that I would make, and also getting better statage by having infused legs. And that's pretty much it. That would be the change that I would make. And, you know, as a side effect to the build, you get these sweet little swirly light show going on. Little disclaimer here. Ooh, a thingy. I'm gonna steal from this. A little disclaimer here. Don't AFK with this build in Raka unless you want, like, a massive amount of whispers when you come back about how you get these glowy red and blue balls. Just a little side note there, because you will get tons of whispers about how did you get those? I want those. So anyway, it's time to talk about the skills that we use in PvE when we're tanking. Again, we use Refreshing Path, except now, since we're in PvE, it actually heals like a champ. These are 1.1 non-crits and 1.9 crits. This is just not on me, this is on the group too. So when you're tanking the monsters, when your group's DPSing on the backside, you can actually put quite a bit of healing. And if you remember from the intro, when we're talking about these phase calculations in ESO, even if a healing springs tick from the healer doesn't line up all the time, if one of your paths represents its own sort of calculation phase, then it acts like mitigation for your group to have these frequent heals going on. It also, as we mentioned in the PvP guide, gives us our armor buff as long as we use it roughly every 5 seconds. It's not that important that you keep it up 24/7, but you should refresh it, or remember to refresh it before really large hits. If you see the monsters winding up for some big Mammo Jumbo move, definitely refresh your refreshing path before it lands. Moving on, we have our single target damage skill, Swallow Soul. This can easily be morphed to funnel health, and it will definitely help with group heals if you do. You could definitely in PvE miss the 8% healing received. It is nice, and the reason I keep it is for PvP. I like the solo a lot, and I like having that extra healing in PvP, but you could very easily do funnel health here, and you would definitely help your group. Next is Inner Range. It's our ranged taunt, and you know, it's self-explanatory. It is a little bit more expensive than the Pierce taunt, but it's got a long range on it. I keep it on my main bar so that I can never have a problem taunting. Next is Sap Essence. This is our AoE damage skill. It does help with group heals, but it's not a crazy strong heal. It does give us our major sorcery buff, which is sort of important towards our DPS, and in group clumps, targets of 3 or more, it can be used to enhance the return rate on siphoning attacks. Siphoning attacks is there for stat sustain, and we've talked about siphoning attacks a little bit more in the intro. Soul Harvest is there for stat sustain sorry, not stats. It's there for ult sustain. You just get 10 ultimate anytime anything trash gets dead. It can easily be dropped for any strong monster in place of, say, like Veil, or for single target monsters where the trash is not dying. But it's also a great way in your execute phase to spike it. Say you drop a Veil to get ready for execute phase and you start executing Impale Weaving while you're tanking, and you get 50 ult. Well, you can drop this Soul Harvest and boost your execute phase by 20% damage. So it's worth keeping in mind and keeping on, in your rotation, but it can be replaced. These ults are not locked in place. On our off bar, we have Shadow Image. This is a great skill for relocating in a fight. Be careful when you do this that the boss doesn't have an attack that follows you. Something like a Crematorial Guard, if you Shadow Image, you'll turn the boss kind of the wrong way and might burn a friend. Make sure that if you use this Jukabox's attack that it's locked in direction, and then that he's not actually going to track you when you change. But there are tons of fights where you can use this. The Watcher fight in ICP is an example where when the Watcher knocks you out in the goopy water, you can Shadow Image back out onto dry land. In the new dungeon, whenever you get cursed, you can use this Shadow Image to teleport back to the center so that the boss has minimal movement. There's all kinds of fun stuff that you can do with this, even kite tanking. And to boot, it provides the minor main buff, reducing the damage the boss does by 15% for 4 seconds every time the archer shoots, which is, as long as you keep this up, that buff is up for the full 20 seconds and 4 seconds after. Proc stat is there for damage. It's worth rotating even on single target damage, but in a boss fight it is a flux slot. You can definitely take it off. In trash pulls, I recommend keeping it. You can definitely contribute a lot of damage to clumps as the tank, way higher than a typical tank would. This build can easily pull 30 to 40k AoE DPS in a good clump, and that's competitive. Most top-end DPS in the same kind of clump would be pulling somewhere around 60,000 damage. So at 30 to 40, you're not crazy far behind, and you're way higher than what a typical tank would do. Harness Magicka is what I keep on here. It's a great little shield for magic damage, and it helps make up for the fact that we don't have as much mitigation versus magic damage as a heavy armored tank would. Double Take we keep for our dodge chance, and that's pretty much it. Impale we keep for our execute phase. This is a higher DPS tank, being light armor, and the execute phase is an important part of it. It's really great to be able to drop a Veil during heavy hitting moves or in the execute phase, because once you drop that Veil, you're tanky enough that you don't need to block to live, and you can actually, as long as you remember to retaunt every 15 seconds, you can actually go to town executing with Impale while standing in that Veil and rack up a lot of DPS, sometimes closing out a fight with as much as 15k DPS. That's pretty substantial for a tank. Most of the time you ride around 6 to 7k DPS without ult. So let's talk about flux slots and things that you might change. First of all, ults. In a raid, you are one of the prime candidates to run aggressive Warhorn, so keep that in mind. If you have to run Veil, let your raid know, and it's up to you to decide which fights you really need Veil in and which ones you can do without. If you can run Ag Warhorn, it's really great for your group. It's going to cut your AoE DPS a little bit, but you're a tank. It's alright if your AoE DPS goes back down to where a tank should be, if you're boosting your group's damage by using aggressive Warhorn. So think of it as a flux slot. For more single target damage, you can actually slot in Ice Comet instead of Veil, and it will do decent amounts of damage. And in a fight where, like the Manticora, where you really need to mind your mitt, you can main bar Veil for the health boost. as well as use it during the rage phase. So that's kind of how you can fluctuate your ultimates. In a seriously big time boss fight where you feel like you need the extra mitigation, you can slot defensive stance on your main bar, and instead of running sap on a single target boss, you can switch out for structured entropy, still keeping your major sorcery buff, however gaining a hot and a large amount of HP, which should help. When you do that, however, it would be worth it to move Shadow Image over and redo your refreshing path on your off bar, like so. And that's pretty much it for itemization. The only other skills that would be worth considering is in fights where the major breach and major fracture aren't being used. You can load Piercing Mark and help your group out with that. And sorry for the delay, here we go. In fights where you really need to get into the combat fast, you can load Lotus Fan on your ARF bar. Some pulls come to mind. There's a pull in Maw where you need to separate certain monsters from other monsters, and it helps if one tank can get in the middle of the clump really fast. That would be a time where I would slot Lotus Fan so that I could get into that clump really fast. Being familiar with all the possible skills that you could load is really clutch to being a good tank, because there might be that one skill that's going to make this fight so much easier, and if you don't have it or don't understand it, then your group suffers for it. So make sure and just really become familiar with everything in your kit. Last thing that you can do is in certain fights, let me show you what that bar would look like. Goodness. Okay, done. Okay, in certain fights, you can actually run Mystic Orb and free up a slot for your typical support healer role. Oftentimes, they're fighting over who runs what support skills, and as the light armor tank, you can actually afford to tank comfortably and send out worms for your team, and you're also in a better position to do it. Think about it, as a DPS, sometimes the healers are behind you and the orb comes and it's in a blind spot and you don't see it, and then you see the synergy, and when you go to hit it, the damn thing's already gone already. It's much harder to see when it's coming out of your blind spot. But when your tank's sitting here and you're standing in his refreshing path and he sends an orb out, you can see it coming from him, and it's a lot easier for you to prep to hit that orb. So in fights where you're tanking here, let's say that my Guar is the boss. Hold still, Guar. Hold. No, stop moving. Okay. He doesn't want to cooperate. There. Thank you. He's the boss. The group is behind him, stacked up on the Guar's butt. And I can now send the orb through the Guar and they can see it and pop it nice and easy. On fights like that, it's actually worth it for you to run Mystic Orb if your group needs mana sustain. You can do that kind of thing really easy with this build, and people will love you because you're that tank that not only tanks, but he also makes everyone's life easier. I love running with that guy. Now I've talked mostly about trials and things like that. This build kicks the ever-loving crap out of vet dailies. So if you want to run this for vet dailies, you're going to have a really fun time doing so. Enjoy. Now it's time to show you how to spend your CP for PVE. Now it's different than PvP for sure, and it might get expensive for you to switch back and forth and back and forth. You can tank low-end content without having the perfect CP. You can even tank some trials, no problem. So there really isn't much need to reset, and you can definitely hybrid between the two CP setups to kind of be a little bit easier on your pocketbook. But you know me, I'm mean and I'm try hard, so I'm gonna reset it every time. However, I'm not gonna reset it right now. I'm just gonna fake reset it. So this is a real easy switch from PvP. First, we take everything out of resistance because monsters can't crit, and we put it all into block expertise. This activates our shield expert passive and really gives us good block sustain, making us not really miss bracing. In this tree, if it's lower end content, anything from ICP, White Gold Tower and below, that includes AA, Hell Ra, then you can leave this like it is. If it's like the new trial vet mode, or if it's Sanctum Ophidia, then you need to play it like this. Full points in Hardy. Really cover the deficit of being that light armor tank and making sure you have that full 23.6% poison, disease, and physical resistance. Over here, this can stay exactly the same. And over here, this can stay exactly the same. And it's literally that simple. All you would do is hit R to confirm, and you're done with your CP. Instead, I'm going to hit F for cancel. Bada bing. And that concludes our PVE sap tank, how to fix your sap tank guide. I hope you guys have really enjoyed this. I hope you learned some things about sap tank. Go out there, have fun kicking the crap out of some trials, kicking the crap out of some vet dailies. Go sap tank. I mentioned in the PvP guide, in case you didn't watch it, that I will be having a Sunshield build video coming out soon. I'll have a tank werewolf video coming out soon. I'm glad to be back making videos. I had some in real life stuff that kept me away from it. That pretty much concludes this 3-part guide. If you watched it all, great. Leave a like, leave a share. I hope you guys really enjoyed it. I'm really excited for the community to be more sort of educated on what sap tank is, how it works, and maybe in the future we can actually make it a major patch without some kind of target nerf, or maybe we can even get some love from ZeniMax. Maybe a dev watches this and shows how much the community actually likes this archetype. There are a lot of people who play sap tank now, and there's a lot of people who are really upset when it was nerfed to dysfunction in the last patch. So I know that some people might be bummed that the fix was to abandon heavy armor. Maybe in Assassin's patch, when we see whatever these heavy armor passives, maybe I can do something and bring heavy armor sap tank back. But for now, embrace the light armor, put on some heavy armor costume, and just have fun with it. It really is a fun build. It feels great. It's a great soloist build. You can do a lot of fun things. So, vaya con Dios, mi amigos and amigas. Gottbeard signing out.